The East India Company was set up in India in 1600 to allow Britain to trade in the East. Soon, ships were sailing between the two nations and, as the British increased their presence in India, many Indians came to settle in Britain. It's hard to believe that this lavish Indian-style pavilion in Brighton was once a farmhouse. It was transformed into a magnificent palace with domes and minarets for King George IV and became the height of fashion. King George IV also supported a local Indian businessman by the name of Sake Deen Mohamed, who worked as a shampooing surgeon.
I'm off to see His Royal Highness later. King George IV. He says I have magic hands. He swears by my massage techniques and Indian remedies. Apparently they do wonders for his health. And I have to confess, having the king as a customer does wonders for my business. Mind you, Brighton's been good to me too. I opened my Oriental Baths here in 1815, just 8 years ago. And word spread around the town fairly quickly about the new service I had to offer. Now, I have more customers than I know what to do with. I've become a shampooing surgeon by royal appointment. And now most of my regular clients can't even get an appointment. Shampooing is the Indian word I use for my special massage skills. I'm so glad to have found a successful occupation at long last. I arrived in Brighton when King George IV, who was Prince of Wales at the time, was in the middle of transforming his plain palace into the spectacular Indian-style pavilion that it is today. Opening my baths here in Brighton, where all things Indian are so popular, was a stroke of genius on my part and jolly good fortune. Another reason why India is so fashionable at the moment is because it's part of the expanding British Empire. It's been ruled by the British for many years and was when I was a child there in Patna in the 1760s. That's where I met my nabob, Captain Baker. He was an officer in the East India Company Regiment and I went to work for him as a servant when I was 10. Nabobs are what we call British men who go to India to make their fortune and return home with their new wealth. The journey to Ireland took weeks, and when I arrived in a town called Cork, it really wasn't what I had expected. But everything changed when I met Jane. She was my sweetheart in Cork, that is until we eloped together. We caused a bit of a stir at the time, but then she became my wife, and we've been together over 30 years. We faced plenty of prejudice along the way, especially with me being Indian. Some people didn't approve of my wife being white. People also were rather skeptical about my vapor baths at first. They claimed the treatments had no healing powers and I was a bit of a rogue. Fortunately, I proved them wrong. The special oils and herbs I use in my steaming baths provide great relief from complaints like asthma and rheumatic pain. As the king himself can verify, I'm able to attract a lot of very rich clients these days, and the high fees they pay me allow me to treat some of my poorer patrons for free. I've come a long way from my early life in India. But somehow in Brighton, surrounded by all things Indian, it's easy to feel very at home.
Sake Deen Mohamed continued to prosper in Brighton. He was shampooing surgeon to two kings, George IV and William IV.